Welcome to the beautiful Game Football Archives. This is the commencement of a brand new project on Football Manager 2026, and it's a big one. We're embarking on an extensive journey exploring the possibility of a worldwide youth system, one that draws the very best talent from every continent into a single academy team, develops them through genuine top-flight football experience within their own continent, and then graduates the finest of them into one World Youth Academy competing in the English Premier League. Here's how the rules work. Each continent has its own academy: CONMEBOL for South America, UEFA for Europe, AFC covering Asia, the Middle East, and Oceania, CONCACAF for Central America, North America, and the Caribbean, and CAF for Africa. Every academy follows the same strict rule. Players joining must be no older than 21. Each club has been given state-of-the-art youth facilities, elite scouting, and top-level coaching, all set up before the save even began. Any talent generated by the academy itself is nurtured and developed, while the club continues scouting and recruiting the best young players from across its designated continent. And then, once a year, each of the 5 Continental academies graduates its most valuable or highest performing player up to the World Academy in the Premier League. The World Academy itself doesn't start from scratch either. It begins with a full squad of the best potential and ability available, under the age of 25. So let's take a look at each club, starting with the World Academy. You can see the facilities here are immaculate, absolutely world class. I've used Brentford as the base club for this rebrand. The stadium, the supporters, the history, all untouched. But every player and key staff member from the original squad has been stripped out, and a completely new squad built in their place. Every club across this project starts with sugar daddy style finances, and I've got the in-game editor active throughout, so any tweaks needed to keep these clubs running at the highest possible level can be made on the fly. Here's CONMEBOL, here's UEFA, here's the AFC team for Asia. All of them sharing that same standard: state-of-the-art facilities, elite youth setups, top-tier training, and corporate infrastructure. This is CONCACAF for the Americas, and this is CAF representing Africa. Quick correction to make here. When I was building these clubs in the pre-game editor, I made an error and accidentally named the African club CONCACAF instead of CAF. Worth knowing as you watch, that mislabel is still sitting in the save. In terms of where each academy actually plays, the World Academy competes in the Premier League in England. CONMEBOL plays in the Argentine First Division. UEFA plays in the German Bundesliga. AFC plays in Japan's J1 League. CONCACAF plays in Liga MX in Mexico. And CAF plays in the South African Premier League. Each club has its own manager named after its continent: Mr. Asia, Mr. Africa, Mr. Americas, and so on. The World Academy, though, is managed under the Football Archives itself, the template manager profile I use across all of our FM saves. This is a completely fresh save, starting in December 2024, timed to coincide with the beginning of the Argentine League season, the earliest starting competition out of all 6 leagues involved. That means the European clubs are going to spend a good chunk of time playing friendlies and training before their own seasons begin. I'll be arranging a couple of friendlies a month for those sides, and if the game allows it, I'd love to get the different Continental academies playing each other directly. Older versions of Football Manager used to allow proper pre-season tournaments or training camps, where you could enter multiple clubs into one event. From my early testing, this version doesn't seem to support that in the same way, so we'll see how creative we can get around it. I've cleared out all the standard start of save emails, squad introductions, board welcomes, club visions, and simply accepted everything as is for now. This is the most extensive save I've ever attempted, so there's going to be plenty of trial and error along the way. Some things might get broken in the process, and hopefully the in-game editor is there to bail us out when that happens. I'm keeping my responses to the early admin fairly basic for now, and I've delegated as many staff responsibilities as possible, press conferences and the like, so we can move through the setup cleanly without getting bogged down. I'll be handling every club myself, and putting together episodes whenever there are real milestones: league form, cup competitions, and hopefully, academies playing each other directly. The whole point of this experiment, at the end of the day, is simple. Which continent can actually produce the best young players? The obvious favourites are Europe and maybe South America. But it'll be genuinely fascinating to see whether Football Manager throws up a surprise. A region that, unlike in real life, starts producing serious talent once given the same world-class infrastructure as everyone else. In terms of tactics, I want to let the quality of each squad guide the approach, at least early on. For the World Academy, for example, we've got some incredible wide talent, players like Vinicius Jr., so I've leaned into more of a winger-focused system to start. I'll let the assistant manager and myself keep tinkering as the save develops. Longer term, I'd love to give each academy its own tactical flavour based on its continent. Something like Asia playing a fluid, short-passing style, blending Japanese and Korean technicality with a bit of Australian and New Zealand physicality. Or Africa with strong defence and wing play. So here's the World Academy's starting squad. Some huge names in here. Erling Haaland, William Saliba, Joan Garcia in goal, Vinny Jr., Michael Olise, Nuno Mendes, Camavinga, Pedri, Florian Wirtz, Jude Bellingham, Julian Alvarez. It's a lean starting squad, but I've tried to keep the overall numbers manageable rather than bloated. One thing I'm really hoping for as the save develops, if injuries pile up or cup competitions stretch the squad too thin, I want the game to more or less force my hand into pulling players up from the feeder academies. So if all my centre-backs go down at once, I can go through the 5 Continental academies, find the best performing centre-back available, and parachute him straight into the World Academy. And the reverse works too. If a player isn't performing at the World Academy level, as long as he's still under 21, he can drop back down to his Continental Academy to rebuild form in a slightly less demanding environment before pushing to return. Once a player reaches the World Academy, there's no age cap. They stay on regardless of turning 25. I'll deal with contract calls, sales and departures as the save naturally progresses. You'll also see I still need to finish clearing out some of the old Brentford under-18s and under-20s. I want this completely clean before the next youth intake arrives, so I can either bring through fresh regions or slot in promising players from the other academies. I've done the same full clear out across every club. Completely gutted the inherited squads and rebuilt from scratch. Though I did leave a handful of highly rated younger players in place here and there where their ability genuinely stood out. I've also put together an early tactic for the World Academy. A gegenpress setup with Haaland up top, Vinicius on the left, Olise on the right, Bellingham as the attacking midfielder, Pedri in the middle, and Caicedo sitting as the defensive midfielder. Nuno Mendes at left back, Reece James at right back, Saliba and Fofana at centre back, and Joan Garcia starting in goal. Now let's move on to the South American Academy, playing in the Argentine League. I honestly can't remember which club I based this one on. I made a point of taking over a smaller, lesser-known side in every league, so viewers wouldn't be left wondering why a giant like River Plate had suddenly transformed. Same process here, clearing the early emails, accepting the club visions. Here's the starting squad for CONMEBOL. I've tried to include some recognisable names where possible, remembering everyone here has to be 21 or under. We've got Beraldo, who was at PSG, Wesley at left back, Barco, who I believe has since moved to Liverpool in real life, André Santos, Nico Paz from Como, a big name to have in this squad, Mastantuono, and Estevão from Chelsea also appears here. Here's the starting 11 I've settled on. The squad currently skews heavily Brazilian and Argentine, with a bit of Ecuadorian and Paraguayan representation as well. And here's the tactic, something a little more narrow, built to suit that South American flair a bit better. Worth noting, some academies were genuinely difficult to fill with high potential players at this age limit, so I had to lower my potential threshold in places just to get the squad up to full strength. And here's the European Academy. I believe I used Heidenheim as the base club for this one. Here's the European starting squad, and this one was genuinely easy to fill out. We've got Kusanov from Man City, Dean Huijsen, Lenny Yoro Levi Colwill, Kerkaz, Lewis Skelly, Alejandro Balde, Lucas Bergvall, João Neves, Kobe Mainu, and of course Lamine Yamal, a huge name to have in this squad. Also Desiree Doué, Liam Delap, Krupi, Kenan Yildiz, and Benjamin Sesko round out the squad. A really nice mix of nations here as well. A fair few Spaniards, France always well represented, but a genuinely healthy spread overall. Here's the tactic and starting 11. Delap up top, Yildiz on the left, Yamal on the right, Doué as the attacking midfielder, Bergvall in the middle, Mainu as the defensive midfielder, and the back line rounding it out. This is a really strong team on paper. It'll be fascinating to see how they go in the Bundesliga, A tough ask early on, given how young the squad is, but I'm genuinely excited to track their progress. Now onto the Asian Academy. Can't quite recall which club I took over for this one, but let's look at the squad. Not a huge amount of household names here, but there's some real quality. A few good Australians in the mix. Alessandro Circati from Parma, Lucas Harrington, who's just moved to Hull City. We've also got Jordi Boss, Al Juwair from Saudi Arabia, a few Koreans, Nestori Iran Kunda, who's just signed for Sporting Lisbon, Christian Volpato from Sassuolo, and Kitano from Japan. Not the most recognisable squad overall, but hopefully this is exactly the continent where the facilities and setup can really produce something special. Here's the starting lineup. Genuinely excited to see how this team plays in the J-League. I think every one of these squads is going to struggle early on simply because there's no experienced core. It's pure youth from top to bottom. Even the World Academy in the Premier League is going to have a tough first season for the same reason. Predominantly Japanese and Australian in this squad, with a good scattering of other nations mixed through. Now over to the Americas, Central America. This squad is Mexican, Canadian, American, and various Caribbean nations, playing in the genuinely strong Liga MX. A couple of interesting nationality quirks in this squad worth mentioning. Nathaniel Brown is technically German. We know he played for Germany at the World Cup and did well. But at this stage of the save, he hasn't earned a full cap yet, and he was actually born in the US. So I've included him here as a bit of an experiment. Since he's now playing alongside players from his birth nation, in that nation's own continent, I'm curious whether the game naturally sways him toward a US call-up instead of Germany. I'll let that play out organically. If he does end up capped for Germany, the rule is he gets moved across to the European Academy. Similarly, Lucas Coleosho, Italian and I believe already capped for Italy in real life, but born in the US, is currently only capped at under 21 level in this save. The rest of the squad includes Tomas Aviles, Alex Freeman, Obed Vargas, Paxton Aronson, Brian Gutierrez, and Gilberto Mora, who was absolutely incredible at the recent World Cup. Brilliant to see him developing here, especially at just 16 years old at this point in the save. And Ricardo Pepi leads the line up top for the US. A genuinely interesting squad, predominantly Mexican with a strong American presence, plus a few players whose international future is still very much undecided. It'll be fascinating to see whether any of them sway away from their real-life international paths. Here's the starting lineup and tactic I've settled on. Quick note on the staff side. Every assistant manager across all 6 clubs has been prepared in the pre-game editor with strong stats and ability, so hopefully they carry some of each club's identity through in how they run training day to day. Now the African Academy, genuinely one of the most exciting squads to put together, for obvious reasons. Everyone knows the raw potential coming out of Africa, and once you add the North African contingent, the Moroccans, the Algerians, it becomes an incredibly exciting group. They're playing in the South African Premier League. Here's the squad we've assembled. Chadi Riyad, Ousmane Diomande and Jan Diomande as well. Goalkeepers were genuinely difficult to find at this age for African nations. Managed to land 2, one Senegalese and one Cameroonian. But there's a real lack of depth in that position across the continent right now. Then we've got Ayoub Bouadi, who's either signed for or is heading to City, I can't quite recall. Marza from Algeria, all players who were genuinely impressive at the World Cup. Also Yankuba Minty, who Premier League fans will already know, and Talbi as well. A really exciting squad, predominantly Moroccan for obvious reasons, but with a strong mix throughout. A couple more nationality situations similar to the Americas squad. Willy Camboila is still tied to France with no full cap yet. Coyote has Italian under-21 caps but plays right wing back and is a really handy inclusion here. And Jeremy Monga has Congo heritage but coming out of the Leicester City youth system in England, but at only 15 is still eligible to switch to an African nation. Really interesting to see how those situations develop over time. I don't know a huge amount about the South African Premier League, so this could end up being a genuine steamroll. I actually think this might be the most unbalanced matchup of the 6, with a squad this strong, dropped into that level of competition. But we'll see how it plays out. Here's the starting lineup and tactic. This team looks seriously impressive. A group of young players, that could realistically beat the South Americans or even the Europeans on their day. And that brings us to the end of this episode. Genuinely excited to see how this all plays out. It'll be interesting to see what obstacles come up along the way, given just how much has been overhauled here for one single objective. If you've got any comments, advice, or things you think I should add or change, let me know down below. And if any of you have attempted something similar before, I'd love to hear your feedback, or where you think I might have gone wrong right from the start. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll be posting these episodes as frequently as I possibly can.